Sudden cardiac arrest is by far the biggest killer out there. You guys and gals are obviously in the business of protecting and serving. The sheriff was forward-thinking, proactive, and wanted to protect the community against the biggest killer, cardiac arrest, and has purchased 100 AEDs from us, Cardiac Science, to give every single one of you a defibrillator in the back of your car. The device is only going to deliver a shock if the victim is in sudden cardiac arrest. You probably already know that, but just as a reminder, and that may be one of the most important things I can say, is that don't be afraid of it. You don't have to be an EMT, you don't have to be a medic. I'm not one either. That's why you see them in schools and in churches and in airports, and I'm really all over the place. They've become kind of the standard of care in treating cardiac arrest from a public access lay responder standpoint. So bottom line, when you put the pads, and you'll hear and see this in a moment, but when you put the pads on the victim, the algorithm in the AED, it analyzes the electrical activity of the heart. And if it detects what's called ventricular fibrillation, and don't worry about remembering that, but if it detects that the victim is in cardiac arrest, then it will allow the AED to charge up and shock the heart and try to put it back into an organized rhythm. If it detects anything other than cardiac arrest, it will not shock them. So if you get mad at your fellow deputy, you can't hook them up and shock them, right? Use your taser for that, but not your AED. They have to be in cardiac arrest in order for it to deliver a shock, okay? So they're safe, they're easy to use. Try to save a life, okay? It's all about time. As you know, oftentimes you're first on scene, and for every minute that goes by, the chance of survival goes down by 10%. So time is your biggest enemy. So if you come across someone that's really just unconscious and not responding to you, that's all you got to do. Just unconscious, not responsive, start CPR, get that AED on them. The AED will make the decision at that point if they need that shock. As the sheriff mentioned, we've also heard many, many stories where it's off-duty deputies that have saved each other, they've saved family members. One of the coolest stories I heard of was the sheriff's office where a deputy's mom got saved on Christmas Day, no joke. We've had neighbors mowing the yard and just a lot of different cool stories over the years. So, you know, it may be one of your own loved ones, it may be someone out in the community, but just do your best. It's not a cure, but if you can get there within those first few critical minutes, statistically, you know, the person it will survive. So again, every minute that goes by, the chance goes down by 10%. But on the AED, there is a rescue ready indicator. All right, right now my AED is showing green. This is the exact same model that you all have. Periodically, I would just check to make sure that this is green. Green means go. The AED checks 146 different components every single night. You don't have to do anything to it. It's all human, you know, no human intervention. And as long as it passes that self-test, your AED is working properly. So it checks to make sure the gel on your pads is properly hydrated since they're going in the trunks. The battery's good, the circuitry, the whole 9 yards. So as long as it's green, your AED is working properly. And we would just recommend that periodically, and you guys, you know, define what that means, whether that's every month, whether it's every 6 weeks, whatever. Y'all define what that means. But just periodically, you know, check to make sure that it is rescue ready and that your AED is working properly. If it ever fails a self-test, then the AED, instead of green like you saw a minute ago, it's now red. And for any of us men, the 7% of us that are colorblind, there's also an X going through it. So if you can't tell that it's red, well, you can still see the X. And then if you also notice that, it just beeped at me. So whether you checked it that day or that week or whatever or not, it's going to beep at you every 30 seconds like a smoke detector in your home to drive you crazy in a good way so that you know that the device needs attention. So again, it does that every day. So if you get in the car and you hear that beeping, don't ignore it. Don't take the battery out to shut it up. You know, come into the office and you know, hand it over and let them know that the device needs attention. It just beeped again. So the idea is, you know, it's obvious. You want to know that your life-saving AED needs attention before you go to use it and you open it up and, the thing isn't working properly. So that's why we do those 146 different self-tests per day. All right, make sense? Easy enough? All right. The pads are already pre-connected, okay? If you have an individual that is really hairy, maybe it's raining outside, whatever, you didn't get good contact on the pads, we did ship them with a spare set of pads, so y'all decide whether or not you want to carry the spare set, but in the back of the carrying case, that's where we would recommend to have that spare set. So if you didn't get good contact on the pads, just rip those off. That hair is going to come with it, and you got a clean, set that you can use. Okay. All right. So let's crank it up. Show how it works. You also got a ready kit with your AED, and probably the most important thing in that is the scissors. So you have to cut the shirt, bra strap, whatever, it is what it is. The pads have to go on the patient's bare skin, okay? So rip that open, and then all you're gonna do is just follow the prompts of the AED, and unlike the older devices, you don't even have to press the shock button anymore. So slap the pads on the individual in either direction, and the device does everything for you at that point. So you don't even have to worry about pressing the shock button, which we know a lot of people don't want to do. So it's just all fully automatic for you. All right, so you do not buy this. You'll never see it again, but as I just mentioned to you, the AED will only deliver a shock if you're in cardiac arrest. The mannequin obviously doesn't have a heart, so I have to fake a heart attack. It's just a rhythm generator or a heart attack in a box. So when it comes to time to analyze, I'm going to hook this into the AED so that the AED thinks that it's reading a cardiac arrest, and then I can show you how it would shock. But I'm just faking a heart attack. You don't do this in a normal rescue. Make sense? All right, so here we go. Open it up, and I'm going to use these pads just so I don't have to tear open another set.
Maintenance required.
All right.
Continue rescue. Stay calm.
It's now green because I plugged the pads back in.
Make sure 911
Can y'all hear that
is
okay?
called now. Begin by exposing patient's bare chest. Remove or cut clothing if needed. When patient's chest is bare, remove the white square package from lid of AED. Tear open white package across dotted line and remove pads. Peel one of the white pads completely from blue plastic. Begin pulling from the tabbed corner. Peel one of the white pads completely from blue plastic. Begin pulling from the tabbed corner. Peel one
Okay,
of the
see what's
white
happening
pads
here?
completely from blue
So
plastic.
I wanted to show you how easy this thing really is. So it's smart enough to know that I haven't completed this step. So if I'm nervous, if I'm still cutting the shirt, don't worry about everything that you're seeing today. Just remember that this thing was really, really easy to use, and a child could do it. So it's going to tell you over and over and over and over and over again to peel apart your pads until you do it. So now when I do it,
peel one of the white pads completely from. Firmly place the pad without the blue plastic on patient's bare chest, exactly as shown on pads. This pad can be placed on either of the two locations as shown on pads.
okay, so either direction, that's a unique feature.
Next, peel second white pad from the blue plastic. Firmly place the second pad on the other location exactly as shown on pads.
All right, so that's literally all you have to do.
Make sure
So
that
now I'm just faking the heart attack.
AED.
No shock button, it's a done deal. You can save a life.
Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Please wait. Do not touch the patient. Analyzing heart rhythm. Shock advised. Do not touch the patient. Shock will be delivered in 3, 2, 1. Shock delivered. It is now.
So that's how easy it is to save a life. If you can simply put the pads on the victim in either direction, which it tells you to do all day long until you do it, then you can save a life. All right, that's all you got to do. So now it's even going to teach you or remind you of CPR.
Other hand directly on top of first hand. Lean over patient with elbows straight. Press the patient's chest down right, 1/3 the depth of chest. Then release. Give patient 30 rapid compressions and 2
or you can just do straight compressions. Okay, so that's it. So now it's also helping you get your rhythm right and all of that. So that's all you got to do. And it's a done deal. So continue following the instructions of the following the instructions of the AED until other help, fire rescue, EMS shows up on scene, and just keep doing what it's doing. After 2 minutes of CPR, the device is going to reanalyze. If it detects that they're still in cardiac arrest, it would deliver another shock. If they're not in cardiac arrest, then it's not going to shock. So again, just keep following what the AED is advising you to do, and that's how easy it is. Theoretically, and I may be slightly off on this, but theoretically, I believe it can deliver up to 92 shocks in a rescue, which would mean that's a rescue of over 180 minutes. Never happened, hopefully. Yeah, great question. So again, the sheriff got y'all brand new technology. And so within the battery, there's an estimated 420 shocks in it. So that's the longest out there. At a minimum, the battery should last you 4 years from the date of operation when you actually put the battery in there. So you're not going to have to worry about the battery every 6 months, every year, or anything like that. It should last you a minimum of 4 years. This is a military spec, so it's designed to handle those, types of environments and bouncing around in the trunk and all that stuff. So you should be okay. Now, with that said, that's why we do, 146 different self-tests per day, because just in case something goes wrong with it, then, we want to catch that before you have to use it. But it's designed to be able to handle the environments of the trunks of your cars. Yeah, so it's a sticky water-based gel on the pad. So the question was, will it stick if the patient is wet? Maybe, maybe not. So that's why we ship it with a spare set of pads. So if the patient is sweaty, if it's August and it's a gazillion degrees outside, or if it's raining and whatever, do your best. Just if you can dry them off, that's great. If it's a monsoon, you're probably soaking wet yourself and there's nothing to do about it. But just do the best you can to dry them off and get those pads on there. But if you're not getting good contact where they're sticking on the victim, then that's where we give you that spare set of pads, and you can try it with your backup parachute, for lack of a better word. So you have that spare set in there. So you'll likely be okay. That's pretty rare where you would need the spare set. But, you want to make sure you give that victim every chance possible to try to save their life. So just to kind of recap, really only two important things to remember. Number one, you can't hurt anybody with it. So the AED is only going to deliver a shock if they're in cardiac arrest, so you can't hurt anybody. That's number one. Number two, as you all just saw, this is no smoke and mirrors here. This is the real deal. This is what you have. I think everybody in the room, correct me if I'm wrong, that's pretty easy to use, right? So open it up, starts talking to you, slap the pads on the victim in either direction, and it's a done deal. That's all you got to do, right? Just follow it along. So if you'll remember those two things, then you can pretty much rest assured, and probably more than one, but some of you over your careers have probably already done CPR on some individuals, I'd guess. I see some head nods, okay? So you know it is what it is. So with as many people as there are in this room carrying these AEDs and driving around Shelby County right now, it's just a matter of time before one of you saves a life. And that's a good thing that the news is out to carry that story, because it is a positive story. You're in the business of protecting and serving, and you could almost bet money that somebody in this room is going to save a life with one of these AEDs. And chances are, many of you in this room are going to save a life carrying one of these AEDs. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the sheriff, and thank y'all for carrying these things. It may be one of your own family members. You just never know. and we appreciate it. And please let us know when you do save a life. We'd like to, or I'd like to come back out and honor the deputy with our Life Save Award and all of that. But thank you. If any other questions, let me know. If you want me to hang out afterwards, happy to do so. But appreciate you, and thank you for what you do.